Sensation at Anfield. Arne Slot is officially out, and Liverpool are moving fast for Andoni Iraola. Welcome back to Anfield Signal, your ultimate home for everything Liverpool. We have some massive breaking transfer updates for you today, from Mo Salah's sudden exit to the shocking collapse of Ibrahim Konate's contract talks. If you want to stay ahead of every major Liverpool update this summer, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss what's coming next. Arne Slot blindsided by Liverpool's sack, with Andoni Iraola responsible for FSG's brutal decision. Liverpool Leadership Group, led by Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, made the decision to dismiss Arne Slot and pursue Andoni Iraola after conducting a review of their disappointing season. Arne Slot was taken by complete surprise after being sacked by Liverpool. Former Bournemouth boss Andoni Iraola has emerged as the leading candidate to take over at Anfield after Slot's departure. And the timing appears to be significant because his availability may have been a factor in the timing of the decision to part ways with Slot. The Liverpool owners, Fenway Sports Group, FSG, said it had been a difficult decision, but they did it after a review after the end of the 2025-26 season. Slot won the title in his first year in charge, but failed to live up to those standards again last season, despite the club spending nearly £450 million on new players. Liverpool only sneaked into the Champions League places, and the fans began to turn on Slot, despite his hugely successful first year. Slot even said publicly that he was planning for next season, was formulating transfer plans, and had discussed the club's preseason preparations. While nothing in football could ever be classed as a shock, it is fair to say that he did not see the news coming before the club announced it publicly on Saturday. Furthermore, the club may have moved on fan favorite Xabi Alonso to stop Chelsea appointing him had they really been set on sacking Slot earlier this month. Iraola has done a brilliant job at Bournemouth, led them into Europe, and then decided to leave the club at the end of his contract. The Spaniard has been a target for Bayer Leverkusen and AC Milan, so Liverpool could not wait, and there is also a clear link with Iraola. Ultimately, the decision to sack Slot was made by Michael Edwards, FSG's chief executive, and Richard Hughes, Liverpool's sporting director. Hughes was technical director at Bournemouth when they appointed Iraola and knows the 43-year-old well. Iraola is known for an attacking, attractive brand of football. Liverpool fans had been fed up with Slot and his style of play, but the Dutchman delivered an incredible first season in charge when he won the title. There is an accusation that he won with former boss Jurgen Klopp's team, but actually they had finished third and fifth in the previous 2 years. Slot came in and won, but also knew he had to rebuild the squad, and if his 2 years had been done in reverse, then he would still be seen as a hero on the Kop. Instead, Slot won in the first year by barely changing the squad, and then they splashed vast sums on Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez, and Jeremy Frimpong. The signings took time to settle, while Isak was struck by injury. Off the pitch, the club was hit by tragedy after the death of Diogo Jota, and that left the whole of football in a state of shock. Slot had issues with Mo Salah, but the pair finished on good terms, and the Egyptian was a player in decline. However, it was a major distraction. The club now accepts that it will be a period of transition, and they have decided to go in a different direction to Slot. In reality, that could have been Slot's first season to build for a second year of success. The hope is fans will recall what a fine job he did overall. Slot still has a year left on his Liverpool contract, and is therefore in no rush to return to management, but will now weigh up his options for the future. Fabrizio Romano confirms Liverpool locked in talks for discount midfielder deal. It looks like big changes are coming to Liverpool's midfield this offseason. The Reds have been linked with players like Lamine Camara and Adam Wharton, but for new faces to be brought into Anfield, there will be some casualties. And one Liverpool midfielder in the shape of Curtis Jones now looks destined to leave. The 25-year-old is a Liverpool homegrown hero, winning 2 Premier League titles since making the breakthrough under Jurgen Klopp. But the England international is out of contract in 2027, and right now a new deal looks all but impossible. Curtis Jones to join Inter Milan. This summer represents the final opportunity Richard Hughes will have to cash in on Jones for a decent fee. Linked with an exit in January, when Inter and Tottenham came knocking on the door, Jones ultimately stayed put. The playmaker has been unable to make the breakthrough and become a starter in midfield under Arne Slot, however, being relegated to marginal roles and stints at right back. Now his transfer destination looks more clear-cut, with Inter and Liverpool locked in talks over a move to the Italian champions. That's according to the latest report from Italian transfer guru Fabrizio Romano, who claims the only issue right now is the value of the deal. Inter and Liverpool still apart on Jones' transfer fee. Inter keep working on Curtis Jones' deal as negotiations continue, he writes on X. He was top target in January and still top of Inter list for the midfield. Jones open to joining Inter and clubs in contact. Agreement not close yet, as 20 million euros suggested fee is not enough, but deal on. It has been reported previously that Richard Hughes was sticking to his £35 million valuation for Jones, but that figure has been reduced to around 30 million euros in recent days. We can conclude, therefore, that an agreement is in sight between the two clubs, and Jones will get his transfer wish granted. Slot prefers others in midfield, sadly, and despite his reputation of being one of the best progressive passers around, it looks like his days at Anfield are at an end. Inter stunned as shock candidates emerge to sign 30 million euros midfielder Curtis Jones. It looks as though Curtis Jones is ready to leave Liverpool. The homegrown midfielder, 25, has won 2 Premier League titles in red, but his days as a first-team player for his boyhood club now appear to be at an end. Jones last signed a contract extension under Jurgen Klopp back in 2022, and that deal expires in the summer of 2027. With no breakthrough over a new deal on the horizon, it's been accepted that the England midfielder will likely move on this summer. Jones has been unable to make a decisive breakthrough as a starting midfielder under Arne Slot, having to settle for relatively few starts and a role at right back. He requires a move to get the game time he deserves in a position he prefers, with Inter Milan ready to complete a quick deal for Jones. Inter want quick deal for Jones. Talks are reportedly ongoing behind the scenes between Liverpool and the Italian champions, although the sides remain apart on their valuations. Inter want to pay 20 million euros for Jones, but Richard Hughes is sticking to his valuation of 30 million euros, according to a report in Gazzetta dello Sport. Christian Chivu, Inter's double-winning coach, sees Jones as the ideal candidate to improve his midfield, and contract talks are not expected to be an issue. Negotiations will resume next week, according to the report, but Inter need now to move with some degree of urgency. Galatasaray now serious contenders for Curtis Jones. Because Galatasaray are firmly in the running for Jones, according to the Italian publication, and appear ready to hit the 30 million euros mark required at Anfield. Jones right now would prefer a move to Inter, but if a deal cannot be done on Liverpool's terms, he could be forced to look elsewhere for his move, namely the Turkish top flight. He's ready to enthusiastically embrace a new life in Italy and the Nerazzurri project, the report reads. He knows it by heart and prefers it to the equally interesting offer from wealthy Galatasaray. It's true that preseason training won't start for another month, but they still need to beat rivals Gala, who are serious contenders these days, to his signature. Liverpool set for midfield shakeup. Liverpool are set to remodel their midfield in the upcoming transfer window and have been linked with several new faces. We could see Lamine Camara or Adam Wharton arrive, for example, with Slot requiring an improvement from his middle section. Jones is likely to suffer the consequences of that reshuffle, with no new contract on the horizon and his club ready to accept a suitable bid. Ridiculous reason Liverpool ended Ibrahim Konate talks. Liverpool apparently ended their contract talks with Ibrahim Konate for a ridiculous reason. Ibrahim Konate will not re-sign with Liverpool. The centre-back's contract ends this summer, and there's no new deal, meaning he leaves the club on a free transfer. It's a shock. Konate himself talked about feeling he was close to a new deal with Liverpool towards the end of the season. Instead, nothing has developed, and talks are now finished. So how has this happened? Well, the Times says that the club ultimately decided against giving Konate what he wanted, as they felt the money must be saved for elsewhere. Primarily, Liverpool want to save the money to replace Mohamed Salah and find cover while Hugo Ekitike is injured. Now, ignoring the fact that never, at any point, was it suggested that Ekitike's injury hurt talks with Konate, This still makes little sense. Liverpool are now down a starting centre-back. 20-year-old Jeremy Jacquet, an unknown Premier League quantity, is in line to replace Konate at the back, and he'll have to do it after returning from shoulder surgery. The club do need a new senior option then, especially as Joe Gomez is expected to leave. His departure would mean Liverpool have a 35-year-old Virgil van Dijk, Jacquet, and a teenage Giovanni Leone returning from as serious knee injury as their centre-backs. Some sort of starting defender is necessary, but now you'll have to pay a transfer fee to find one. Surely that takes more money than simply paying Konate. Or is the suggestion that Liverpool just won't replace him, instead spending the money in an area where they spent £300 million in 2025? Something doesn't add up. Ibrahim Konate. Situation summary. Anfield departure confirmed. As of the 29th of May, 2026, Ibrahim Konate is officially set to leave Liverpool as a free agent when his contract expires at the end of June. Despite the 27-year-old French defender publicly stating in April that a contract renewal was close, talks between his representatives and sporting director Richard Hughes have completely broken down over wage valuation. Having joined from RB Leipzig for £35 million in 2021, Konate finishes a 5-year Anfield stay that included a Premier League title, making his final appearance in Sunday's 1-1 draw against Brentford, where he played the full 90 minutes. Future destinations. The powerhouse centre-back's availability on a free transfer has alerted Europe's elite. Reports indicate Konate heavily favors a move to La Liga, though a return to his hometown with Paris Saint-Germain remains a strong possibility. He has also been named in Didier Deschamps' France squad for the upcoming 2026 World Cup. Mo Salah wanted for jaw-dropping €90 million contract deal. Mohamed Salah has played his final game for Liverpool. The Egyptian king has drawn the curtain on a glorious 9-year spell on Merseyside. Salah, a 2-time African Footballer of the Year, has swept the board of team and individual honors throughout his time at Anfield. He spearheaded 2 Premier League title wins, as well as the Champions League, and has landed various other domestic and international honors besides. But owing to a fallout with Arne Slot, the 33-year-old has reached an agreement to rip up his £400,000 per week contract 1 year early. Salah therefore remains in total control of his future, with teams in MLS, as well as the Saudi Pro League, keen on landing his signature. Fenerbahce want €90 million Salah deal. We are led to believe, however, that the Egypt legend is intent on remaining in Europe and competing at the highest level, and he may well have an offer from Fenerbahce in Turkey, with talks reportedly taking place between Salah and the Istanbul Giants. Fenerbahce are in the midst of a presidential showdown, with candidate Aziz Yildirim spelling out just how much it would take to land Salah. Salah reportedly wants a salary of €20 million, he told state broadcaster TRT Spor. With taxes, that rises to €30 million. He would want a 3-year contract, which means a total cost of €90 million. If that is our urgent need, we will sign him. Salah not finished at the top level. Saudi sides like Al Qadsiya and Al Ittihad have been noted as potential Salah suitors in the SPL, and in MLS, San Diego FC would love to have Salah on board, although it is clear that teams in the US could not pay Salah as much as he could earn in Saudi Arabia. But there may be sporting considerations to take into account, with Salah in the mindset of having plenty of miles left in his tank. Liverpool fans will rue the day they lost their much-adored attacker, and that a place could not be carved out for him in Arne Slot's system. Instead, he had to bid an emotional farewell to Anfield, and he will earn the acclaim from another set of fans next season instead. Liverpool handed massive Adam Wharton boost as major update emerges. Liverpool are in desperate need of new players. Their first-team squad have massively underdelivered this season, and unless they quickly improve their ranks, they could be left even further behind by their rivals. Most fans, though, that Arne Slot's men would be one of the main contenders for the Premier League title, but as proven by their 5th-place finish, that's far from the case. Each area of the Reds team could do with a new face or two, and the fact that no concrete moves have been made yet is rather worrying. However, there is some good news for Liverpool fans, as their club may have just been handed a boost in their chase for Adam Wharton. Crystal Palace are looking at signing Shea Charles. Wharton has been one of the Premier League's best number sixes this term, with the Englishman winning 3 trophies in the last 12 months. Crystal Palace's recent Conference League win proves how good they are, and even though Wharton hasn't been taken to the 2026 World Cup, he's still an exceptional talent. And since he's one of the most sought-after midfielders in the world, it's hardly surprising to see Palace vying for the transfer of a new midfielder, which could lead to Wharton being moved on. That is, if a report from Sebastian Vidal is to be believed. Leeds United is pushing to sign Shea Charles this summer. The Southampton midfielder, long admired by Daniel Farke, is seen as a profile capable of following the trajectory of Ethan Ampadu at Elland Road, he wrote. Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest are also monitoring the situation. Liverpool need to figure out their transfer priorities as soon as possible. Seeing as though Slot seems to be staying in charge of Liverpool, it's clear that the Dutchman and Richard Hughes need to get on the same page about their recruitment this summer. There's a lot of changes that need to take place for the Reds to become title challengers again, and if they don't spend a decent chunk of change, they'll be shooting themselves in the foot. Even though Ryan Gravenberch may have been handed a bumper new deal at the start of the season, he's not been at his best, and at the moment, he's failing to live up to the £280,000 per week that he's being given. However, the introduction of someone such as Wharton could spur the former Bayern Munich man on to become better, or even allow him to be moved further forward in Slot's midfield three. There are so many ifs and buts ahead of the 2026-27 summer transfer window, and if we're being honest, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But if Liverpool can add at least 3 or 4 new players to their starting 11, they could get back on track and prove that they're good enough to challenge for the title, even if fans don't believe that at the moment. That's all for today's updates. A massive summer of transition is ahead at Anfield. But what do you think? Is Andoni Iraola the right man for the job? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to Anfield Signal so you never miss an update this transfer window. Thanks for watching, and as always, up the Reds.